50 years ago, the health of the Great Lakes was in such distress that it prompted the seminal bilateral Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement.
Beneath the serene waters and picturesque shorelines of the Great Lakes, the United States Geological Survey (USGS) has uncovered something that is rewriting how scientists view the region's geologic and seismic landscape. In a rare and urgent move, the USGS has issued a red alert after discovering a vast, dynamic geological anomaly deep beneath the Great Lakes Basin. An ancient, restless fault line thought to have been dormant for millions of years, but now exhibiting unexpected and intense seismic activity. This finding is not only alarming due to its immediate implications, but also because it challenges the very foundation of what experts believed about the stability of North America's interior. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. What lies beneath the Great Lakes is far from static. This region, carved by glaciers over thousands of years, sits atop a complicated and largely uncharted network of subterranean faults and folds. For decades, geologists believed that the area was tectonically quiet, safe, stable, and geologically uneventful. But the new data collected from a network of seismographs, satellite ground deformation sensors, and deep penetration radar scans tells a very different story. It turns out that beneath this quiet facade, immense geological forces have been gradually building pressure. The USGS has been monitoring low-level seismic tremors in the Great Lakes region for years, mostly dismissing them as aftershocks from ancient seismic events or natural subsidence. But recently, something changed. A cluster of seismic events far deeper than usual and unusually consistent in pattern began surfacing in the data. These weren't minor quakes or background tremors, they were rhythmic pulses, suggesting movement along a massive underground fault. The tremors formed a pattern known in seismology as a harmonic tremor, often associated with the movement of magma or tectonic stress adjustments. It was as if something beneath the Earth's crust was breathing, expanding and contracting in slow, deliberate cycles. Using advanced subsurface imaging and ground-penetrating radar, the USGS was able to map a fault system that had never been seen before. Stretching from the western edge of Lake Superior all the way beneath Lake Erie, this fault line runs diagonally through the heart of the Great Lakes. But it wasn't the presence of the fault itself that set off alarm bells. It was the intense movement and stress along this fault that prompted the red alert. Scientists believe the fault is reactivating, driven by either a deep-seated magmatic intrusion or a redistribution of tectonic stress, potentially related to distant shifts along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge or even the New Madrid seismic zone to the south. This development has stunned geologists because the interior of the North American continent is not typically considered seismically volatile. Most tectonic activity is concentrated along plate boundaries, far from the Great Lakes. The notion that a fault line here could awaken and generate significant seismic events challenges decades of assumptions. It also raises serious concerns about the potential for large magnitude earthquakes in a region that is ill-prepared for such events. Infrastructure around the Great Lakes, power plants, dams, water treatment facilities, and even nuclear installations, was not designed with seismic resilience in mind. The cities that dot the shores of these lakes, including Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, and Milwaukee, have little in the way of earthquake readiness. A powerful quake, even one measuring between 5.5 and 6.5 on the Richter scale, could cause widespread damage, particularly due to the soft, water-saturated soil in many low-lying areas around the lakes. The risk is not just to buildings and roads, but to the very lifelines of modern civilization: electricity, clean water, and food supply chains. Further complicating matters is the presence of numerous old and abandoned mines throughout the region, lie deep beneath the surface and intersect with the newly identified fault in several locations. The concern among geologists is that these hollowed-out spaces could act as amplifiers or conduits for seismic energy, exacerbating the effects of a quake and possibly triggering secondary collapses or subsidence events. Entire areas could become unstable, particularly those built above or near these old shafts. In addition to the fault reactivation, scientists have observed unusual geochemical activity in several places across the region. Gases like radon and sulfur dioxide, which typically seep upward from deep Earth sources, have been detected in elevated concentrations in monitoring wells and natural springs. These gases often serve as precursors to seismic or volcanic activity. While the Great Lakes are not known to be a volcanically active region, the combination of gas emissions and fault movement suggests a more complex system of subterranean dynamics than previously understood. There is also growing concern over the interaction between the fault activity and the enormous weight of the lakes themselves. The Great Lakes collectively hold about 21% of the world's surface freshwater. That water exerts an enormous downward pressure on the Earth's crust. Geophysicists theorize that the shifting of this water mass, whether through seasonal cycles, long-term climate change, or even ice melt-induced inflows, could be influencing stress distributions along the fault. This idea, known as hydroseismicity, posits that variations in water levels can directly impact seismic activity by lubricating fault lines or increasing vertical pressure. If this is the case, then even minor changes in lake water volume could have cascading effects beneath the surface. Adding to the urgency is the discovery of microfractures and surface deformations along the lake beds. Using autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with sonar and LiDAR, researchers have mapped a network of cracks and ridges that appear to be growing. These formations could be the early signs of uplift or subsidence, both of which are associated with active tectonic zones. The shifting lake beds could, over time, alter the flow of water between the lakes, affecting water levels, ecological balances, and even commercial navigation routes that rely on stable and predictable depths. The Great Lakes are a critical artery for North American commerce. Every year, hundreds of millions of tons of cargo, including iron ore, coal, grain, and oil, move through this freshwater superhighway. A significant seismic event, even if not catastrophic, could disrupt this traffic for weeks or months. Locks and channels might be damaged, harbor depths could change, and underwater infrastructure like pipelines and cables could be torn or severed. The financial cost of such disruption would ripple across the continent. Beyond the immediate physical and economic risks, there are ecological consequences as well. Seismic activity could disturb long-buried contaminants in the lakebed sediments. Legacy pollutants from decades of industrial waste dumping that settled undisturbed at the bottom of the lakes. A violent jolt, or even subtle shifting of sediments, could release these toxins back into the water column, potentially affecting fish populations and water quality for millions of people. At the same time, researchers are racing to understand the broader context of this fault system. Some suggest it could be part of a hidden microplate, a smaller tectonic fragment wedged between the larger North American and other surrounding plates. If proven true, this would indicate a level of tectonic complexity that is not only unexpected, but potentially dangerous, as it introduces more moving parts into what was assumed to be a stable interior region. Others theorize that this anomaly could be linked to ancient rifting events, remnants of the time when the North American continent nearly split apart hundreds of millions of years ago. The implications of this discovery extend beyond the Great Lakes. If such a fault system can exist here, undetected until now, how many other stable regions might be quietly evolving beneath the surface? The red alert issued by the USGS is not just a warning about this specific area. It's a wake-up call for seismologists and policymakers alike. The belief in continental stability may be more myth than reality, and it could be time to reevaluate how risk is assessed across the so-called safe zones of the planet. Researchers are now deploying more sensors across the Great Lakes region to gather higher resolution data. Satellite-based interferometry is being used to detect minuscule ground movements, and scientists are collaborating internationally to understand if similar phenomena are occurring in other parts of the world with comparable geology. Time is of the essence, not because a massive earthquake is guaranteed to happen tomorrow, but because the signs point to an escalating process whose trajectory is still uncertain. Public awareness campaigns are being quietly prepared, although officials are cautious about causing panic. The red alert is technical in nature, aimed primarily at informing other scientists, first responders, and infrastructure managers. Still, the presence of such a warning for a region long thought to be safe is a sobering signal. It forces a reconsideration of risk tolerance, disaster preparedness, and long-term infrastructure resilience in places not traditionally seen as earthquake zones. The discovery beneath the Great Lakes marks a turning point in the study of North American geology. It reminds us that the Earth is never truly still, that the seemingly placid foundations upon which lives and cities are built are in fact alive, shifting, and mysterious. The deep earth, with all its secrets, does not adhere to human timelines or assumptions. It moves in silence, in slow rhythms and sudden pulses, reminding us of its vast unknowable power. The red alert is a message not just from the USGS, but from the planet itself. There is more to learn, more to monitor, and much more at stake than anyone previously imagined. The red alert issued by the USGS concerning the geological anomaly beneath the Great Lakes has triggered an unprecedented surge of activity among geophysicists, structural engineers, climatologists, and environmental scientists across the continent. As more sophisticated instruments are deployed and data pours in from dozens of monitoring stations, the depth and complexity of this phenomenon are beginning to reveal a far more intricate picture than anyone initially anticipated. At its core lies a fundamental reshaping of our understanding of cratonic interiors, those ancient, supposedly stable regions of continental crust. What is now emerging is a scenario in which the Great Lakes Basin may be undergoing an early phase of lithospheric reconfiguration, an exceedingly rare event in the human timescale, but one with vast implications. One of the most unexpected developments to arise from this discovery is the detection of significant geothermal anomalies deep below the lake beds. Using magnetotelluric surveys, an electromagnetic technique that measures variations in Earth's natural magnetic and electric fields, researchers have mapped areas of unusually high conductivity. These zones correspond with heat plumes, likely generated by upwelling mantle material or by the migration of superheated fluids along deeply buried faults. While these geothermal hotspots are not comparable to classic volcanic features such as magma chambers or calderas, they do suggest that the thermal structure of the lithosphere beneath the Great Lakes is far from homogeneous. The presence of elevated heat flux in what was presumed to be a cold and stable part of the crust raises profound questions. For instance, it could be the result of a failed rift system, an aborted continental split that began hundreds of millions of years ago but never completed. These rift scars, known as oligocgens, are structurally weak and can remain susceptible to reactivation if external forces are applied, such as the shifting of distant tectonic plates or glacial isostatic rebound. In this context, the slowly rising geothermal signature could be a harbinger of deeper changes, weakening of the lithosphere, increased fault mobility, and perhaps even the slow migration of mantle material. Complicating the picture further is the impact of glacial history on the region's stress regime. During the last ice age, the Great Lakes region was buried under massive ice sheets, thousands of feet thick. The tremendous weight of this ice depressed the Earth's crust, and when it melted around 10,000 years ago, the land began a slow, uneven rebound, a process that continues to this day. This isostatic rebound is not uniform. Some areas are rising faster than others, creating differential stress within the crust. Combined with the newly discovered fault dynamics, this uneven uplift could be contributing to localized strain accumulation, priming the region for future seismic release. From a structural geology perspective, this presents a scenario where multiple stress vectors, tectonic, gravitational, and thermal, are converging within a historically underestimated seismic environment. The cumulative impact could be the onset of a rare intraplate seismic episode, akin to what occurred in the New Madrid seismic zone in the early 1800s. While the USGS has refrained from making direct predictions about the magnitude or timing of future seismic events, the presence of multiple compounding risk factors underlines the urgency of reassessing preparedness protocols for all Great Lakes states and provinces. At the frontier of this exploration lies the interaction between geological structures and hydrodynamics. Subsurface mapping has identified several aquifers that appear to intersect or run parallel with the reactivated fault zones. These groundwater reservoirs under natural pressure could be subject to destabilization if fault movement increases. Seismic shifts may alter flow paths or breach confining layers, resulting in either the contamination of freshwater supplies or the uncontrolled release of pressurized groundwater into shallow ecosystems. In the worst-case scenario, such a breach could undermine surface stability, leading to sinkholes or even liquefaction events during seismic activity. Moreover, the vast interconnectedness of the lakes themselves introduces another layer of complexity. Hydrologists are now analyzing how shifts in the lake beds, even if subtle, might affect water balance and flow between the 5 lakes. The Great Lakes are a single hydrological system, and disruptions in one basin inevitably affect the others. Changes in water levels or flow rates could have far-reaching implications for fisheries, agriculture, drinking water supply, and shoreline integrity. Should tectonic movements subtly tilt lake basins or alter outlet elevations, it could irreversibly change the dynamics of the watershed, transforming drainage patterns, flooding new areas, and desiccating others. Environmental scientists are closely watching the sediment layers across the lake beds. These sediment strata serve as historical archives, preserving chemical records of everything from industrial pollution to natural climate shifts. However, recent core samples extracted from the lakes suggest that the stratigraphy is being disrupted. Layers that should be horizontal are showing warping, folding, and in some cases vertical displacement. This deformation is physical evidence of tectonic stress transmission from below and may be causing the release of ancient pollutants trapped in anaerobic mud. These include heavy metals, synthetic organic compounds, and even radioactive waste deposited during the Cold War. The potential for these materials to re-enter the aquatic ecosystem poses a serious environmental hazard. Perhaps most worrying is the cascading nature of these risks. A fault shift that affects water levels could destabilize industrial waterfronts, especially those storing petrochemicals, raw materials, or wastewater. A compromised aquifer could lead to shortages of clean drinking water in already strained municipalities. A landslide beneath a lake could generate inland tsunamis, localized but powerful waves capable of inundating communities, particularly those built close to the shorelines. Though inland tsunamis are rare, historical precedents in similar environments, such as fjords in Norway and lakes in the Himalayas, show that under the right conditions, such events are not only possible, but catastrophic. The situation also touches on a sensitive political dimension. The Great Lakes straddle the US-Canada border, and any significant geophysical changes affecting water rights, environmental policy, or resource management could strain cross-border agreements. The International Joint Commission, which governs shared water use between the two nations, is now being briefed on potential scenarios stemming from tectonic destabilization. Should sediment movement or seismic shifts alter the flow of the St. Lawrence River, for instance, it could impact everything from shipping to hydroelectric generation in Quebec and Ontario. The geopolitical consequences of even minor geological changes could thus ripple across economic and diplomatic lines. Meanwhile, atmospheric scientists are stepping in to investigate whether the changing geothermal dynamics beneath the lakes might be influencing local weather patterns. It may seem far-fetched, but the introduction of latent heat into lake bottom waters can change thermal stratification. This, in turn, influences how and when the lakes freeze over or stratify during the summer. Disruptions in this cycle could lead to shifts in lake effect snow patterns, increased fog frequency, or altered storm development. In winter months, changes in the timing or extent of lake freezing could also impact energy consumption, wildlife migration, and the regional economy built around snow-dependent activities. At the human level, communities around the lakes are experiencing a mix of curiosity, concern, and disbelief. Public forums and town hall meetings are beginning to feature experts who must now explain why an area long considered safe may not be so after all. Schools, hospitals, and municipal governments are reviewing emergency protocols. Some are even retrofitting buildings or updating land use plans to reflect new seismic assessments. The challenge is steep. Many of these communities have no experience with earthquake drills, early warning systems, or the kind of insurance frameworks necessary to prepare for tectonic events. Unlike California or Alaska, there's no cultural memory of the ground moving here, making public engagement and trust especially delicate. On the scientific front, a flood of new research initiatives is now underway. Universities across the Midwest and Canada are forming consortia to pool resources and share data. Funding has been fast-tracked for supercomputer simulations that can model different fault slip scenarios and their surface impacts. These models are taking into account not just seismic mechanics, but also fluid migration, sediment liquefaction, and structural failure in built environments. The goal is to develop a predictive system, something that can offer days, if not weeks, of warning based on precursor signals detected in the Earth's crust. Satellite missions are being repurposed to focus on the region. Instruments originally intended for climate monitoring are now tasked with tracking ground deformation, while radar interferometry is capturing high-resolution images of subtle changes in elevation or surface displacement. These tools, when combined with deep Earth monitoring arrays, are beginning to offer a 3D time-lapsed view of the ongoing transformation. Already, this interdisciplinary approach is yielding new insights into how continental interiors evolve, how forces once thought dormant can awaken with little notice. In the absence of a definitive endgame, the USGS Red Alert stands as a symbol of heightened vigilance. It's a scientific declaration that the old maps, the ones shaded green to indicate stability, may no longer reflect the true dynamics of Earth's inner workings. The Great Lakes, once a region studied mostly for its environmental or hydrological features, has become a live laboratory, a place where the slow grind of tectonics meets the urgency of modern society. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on USGS's Red Alert beneath the Great Lakes? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.